Hey, beautiful soul. Before we jump into the episode, I want to know, did you know that I have a completely free virtual new moon circle called Co-Create every single month? This stemmed out of a constant request for a space or a church that taught so many different spiritual modalities, tools, systems, beliefs, and I didn't have any place to send them. So I created it. In Co-Create, this is the space that I want to bring to you to learn how to create a connection to yourself, your energetics, and the divine in a community that won't make you feel like a weirdo. A space where you can ask any question you want, where we get to dive into so many systems and beliefs and tools, and you get to pick and choose what feels good for you. So you can learn what it means to truly co-create with the universe, God, source, for flow, trust, and surrender, to connect with other women who are spiritually curious in a space that's safe, sacred, and inspirational. It's your space for you to find your people and lean into new spiritual practices to truly co create with the universe or God or source or whoever you feel connected to. You'll gain tools and knowledge to understand what it really means to lean into the universal laws and become magnetic, all while being held by massive feminine energy. I've been hosting these free new moon circles for almost a year now, and it's definitely one of my most sacred spaces, and it's completely free for you every single month. Diana said that she made a promise to herself that she would work on her personal development and growth journey earlier in 2024. So I reached out to her and asked her for a testimonial to share with us. And what she said was Adriana's membership community and Co-Create has accelerated that and more. I have had multiple breakthroughs from finding a new career path, improving my mental health by reducing my anxiety and depression through journaling, meditation, and breath work, improving my physical health, doing walking meditations are my jam, strengthening my marriage and relationships, improving my money mindset, and just setting up a routine that complements my design. I've learned to embrace challenges as a sign of growth. I will continuously do my best to be in harmony with myself, with this world, and the universe. I have never felt so seen, heard, safe, and supported. Her community and Co-Create has helped me connect to my true authentic self, to move with grace and intention, to embrace everyone's uniqueness. And we each have a special gift and are collectively part of this world to show and share it this way. Thank you so much, Diana, for sharing all of your reflections and how Co-Create and my community has changed your life. And now I want to share it with everyone else. The link to register is in the show notes below. Even if you register for 1 month, you will automatically be signed up to be able to join every single month for as long as you're on the list. So you don't have to repeat it every month. You will always get on the list. You will always have the Zoom link available. I love you so much. Thank you so much for being here. Now enjoy the episode. Welcome to the No BS Human Design Podcast. I'm Adriana Keefe, human design coach and motivational speaker. I went through my quarter life crisis in my 20s and had to learn how to navigate through finding what I was meant to be doing with my life. I refused to believe in the culture that said we were all meant to have the same path and boring careers until we retire and die. And along my journey, I found human design, a system that reveals your energetic blueprint, showing you where and how to access your body's consciousness and how to live as your true self. Human design changed my life, so I started sharing it with others and changing their lives, but we were all finding the same problem: a lack of resources that explain the system in easy and useful ways. So I created this show where we dive deep into the lessons of the human design system without the BS and the noise you find on the internet. Listen in for lessons in human design, finding your purpose, manifestation and spiritual practices, human design within business, and so much more. We connect with other experts in the human design and spiritual realm in a refreshingly honest way to help you find your way along your spiritual path and live this life with intention. It's time to let go of the societal expectations of being and let yourself find abundance through being uniquely you. Let's get started. Hello, beautiful. Welcome back to another episode of the No BS Human Design Podcast. I have got a treat for you today. I wasn't sure whether or not I was going to talk about this on the podcast, not because I didn't want to, but I just didn't know if it would be something that I would create a whole episode on. And literally every day, someone new asks me to share. So here we are. Today, you're going to hear about my first ever psilocybin journey that I did on New Year's Eve. But before we get into that gold, it is gold. Let me tell you, it is gold. Before we get into that, I want to remind you that the Magnetic Rebellion is open for new members, and I would love to see you in there. If you are feeling spiritually curious, if you're feeling like you are on this spiritual personal development journey and it is starting to get lonely because you are outgrowing the people that you're around, our community has been blowing up the chat. They have been so supportive. I watch them. Someone posts about having a bad day, and then there's like 9 replies on it. It has just been so satisfying to see community come together, especially in a time like right now. As I'm recording this, we still have the LA fires going on. There's just, and the full moon in Cancer, there's just so much emotion and anxiety going on right now. So it's looking like a really healing place for the people who are in there. Not to mention, Rebirth Journey kicked off, and we are in the process of deconditioning as a collective by Human Design, adding in tapping, emotional freedom technique, if you're familiar with that. And we have really fucking epic guest speakers like Rachel Phelan teaching on witchcraft. If you can't make it live, there's always a recording. And then we have Kundalini next month. I am so excited for Kundalini. It's a practice I incorporate every single day now. Well, that's a bit of an exaggeration. Weekends get weird. Every single weekday, when I sit in front of my altar for a longer period of time, I've been using Kundalini, and it's really opened. Words are really hard. It's my Friday, guys. Opened me up to a whole new world of creativity and sexual energy, and just love it. Love it. So the Magnetic Rebellion is open. It's only $27 a month, which is like way less than you would probably spend on coffee at Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts. So something to definitely consider, because this whole spiritual evolution can be a very lonely, bumpy road if you don't have people in your corner and you don't have systems and ways to identify how to move through the energies that come up for you. Okay, so link to that in the show notes. Let's dive into my first ever mushroom journey. So I've got my notes up here so I remember everything that happened. I'm not even going to be able to share about everything that happened because it was like living 20 lives in a few hours. It was wild. So I'm going to start way back at the beginning. The first time I ever even considered using something like psilocybin. So when I, let's go back further. When I was young, when I was a teenager, because of my rebellious nature, a lot of people, adults, fucking adults, assumed that I was someone who would use marijuana. I was like some sort of awful drug user. Like I just had all this shame from adults, even though like I literally never touched marijuana till I was in my 20s. I didn't do any other type of drug ever. I drank alcohol, but like I was a stupid teenager. Don't we all drink alcohol? Anyway, I had a deep fear of losing control. Of course, this makes so much sense. Losing control over my body very much came from my childhood and my years of abuse. So, because of that, I very rarely ever in my even adult life use marijuana. It's not something I feel connected to, and I've especially never played with other drugs that, yeah, no. One caveat being like trying like a little tiny bit of Molly when I was like in my 20s. And that was like a tiny bit because I was like, I'm too scared. I can't do it. I like barely felt anything. So glad that was that's over. That's been there, done that. So fast forwarding to about a year and a half ago, I started learning about psilocybin and more natural plant medicines and how they're using them in healing for abuse survivors and people who have some sort of really big trauma, complex PTSD that they were moving through. And I was exploring all my options. They're using a lot of MDMA now, which is really cool. And I found myself a facilitator, 2 facilitators actually, who were supposed to walk myself and my husband through our own unique journeys. And I really wanted to explore the depths of the trauma that I hadn't yet unlocked. That was my purpose for me looking into this to begin with because I have done so much work. This is why I'm able to sit here and talk about it without getting really worked up or emotional. I've done so much conscious work. And I also have a body that's kind of made of steel. It's very armored. So getting underneath that armor takes a lot of effort for me and takes time. And so my goal with psilocybin was to let some more stuff surface that I could then move through and continue to heal. But I was too afraid to do that without a facilitator. Again, fear of losing control of my body, also fear of vulnerability. So I didn't want to do it with like a bunch of random friends or anything like that. I didn't want people to see me in a state that I didn't know how to control. And then, very last minute, the facilitators canceled on us. I was at that point, I was very connected to divine timing and to the universe. So, although I trusted it, I was still very let down. But ultimately, I was like, okay, it's not my time. I'm not going to force this. I'm going to let it go. And when mushrooms are meant to come into my life, or any type of medicine is meant to come into my life, it will. And then I'm actually just putting this together now. I didn't even have this in my notes. A little while later, like just a few months later, cacao came into my life. And so cacao, that was not this past fall, but fall of 2023, started coming into my life. And that is a plant medicine. It's a very gentle one. It's not one there you go trippy or anything like that. But I did channel like a whole program out of it and a whole healing process essentially. That is now my group program, Revive Your Sacral. And that was really my introduction to plant medicine. So I continuously used cacao since then. Now, we over the past year and a half since that facilitation was supposed to occur, I've done even more work, right? Like this is who I am. This is my Scorpio moon, this is my Pluto placements, this is my sixth line. I always want to evolve, I always want to be better. I want to heal. And so I'm always doing this work. I'm understanding how my brain specifically works, how I can control my brain, how I can rewire my brain. This is literally everything I do, is everything I teach, everything I do with my clients. And so I've had an additional year and a half of understanding how my brain works, how to take control of my brain and my nervous system, and also opened myself up to a very gentle plant medicine in the meantime. So now, fast forward to end of this year, 2024. My husband and I go away every New Year's Eve. It is something where we very much look forward to, where my in-laws come and watch the kids overnight. It is beautiful. And my husband and I would typically go into Boston or Providence and spend the night at like a show or partying or whatever. And this year I was like, I just don't care for like the bar scene. I don't care to do anything else. There was no good shows going on. We saw the Slut last year, which was phenomenal, by the way. Like, go see the Slut. That was so much fun. And the next time I'm going, I'm doing it with my girlfriends because it's just too good. Sorry, Mr. K. Sorry, Tim. Um, and so I left it. I was trying to like Google, trying to find things to do New Year's Eve, and I couldn't, and it was getting frustrating. So what's the manifesting generators, not self-theme? It is frustration. So in that moment, I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to stop. And I asked universe, I literally say this kind of shit out loud, you guys. Like, try it. It's pretty cool. I said, universe, please send me the right opportunity, the perfect thing that's going to be our New Year's Eve. And I waited. And I can't even remember where I was now. Was I driving in a car? Was I in the shower? I don't know. And all of a sudden it dropped into me. It was a download, clearly from my guides or from source. I don't know. Random thoughts. They tend to be downloads. And I heard it was time to have a mushroom journey. I heard like go play with mushrooms. And I was like, oh, okay, let me feel this one out. And as I felt it out, I realized I actually felt really safe and really equipped to do this on my own now. I never realized that I now was at a point where I felt safe to do this kind of medicine on my own. So I reached out to friends in my network. Of course, my husband was on board. He was like, "Yeah, I totally would want to do that." And I reached out to my network and I asked who has good connections. I didn't want to just go get like some thing off the street. Like I wanted real legitimate facilitator grade type of mushroom, like ceremonial kind of mushroom. So of course, my network came through, line four, right? And hooked me up with this really, really cool company who not only had very safe psilocybin, but they also would hop on a call with us to talk about best practices and to make sure we felt good going into it. So we got on a call, and the woman was amazing. She was so helpful. She gave us so many tools and resources that we used and ways to prepare. We ended up moving. We had a hotel booked for that night in Providence, and we ended up, because of our conversation with her, moved from a hotel, which would probably be too many people, wouldn't feel really safe to us, to a cabin in the woods out in Western Massachusetts. So moved over to a cabin in the woods for that night. And that was the best decision for sure, because we were surrounded by nature. We got to go for walks outside before and after. Um, and then we prepared. So now we're New Year's Eve. We go to the cabin in the woods. It was really beautiful little cabin. It was an old girls' camp from like, I'm talking like old, from the 1800s and early 1900s, that was currently being renovated into a wellness camp, a wellness center. And in the meantime, before it was actually open as a wellness center, they are Airbnb their whatever cabins have been renovated, which I was like, that is just a genius way to make money while you're doing this. So there was no one else there besides us and the owners, and they were really great. They brought over coffee. We played with their dogs, and it was very homey. I felt very safe there. Um, the woman was also an not Ayurvedic, sorry, acupuncturist and a bunch of other holistic stuff. So I was like, well, if she finds like sees us on mushrooms, she's probably gonna do it with us. Like I felt very safe and seen with her. So it was a really good place. I'm so glad we moved to the cabin. Now, as we start our psilocybin journey, my friend Rachel Phelan, who you guys just heard on the podcast, she's such a vibe. She's like, you're a tourist, you're gonna want luxury, you're gonna want a vibe during this. So she gave me a bunch of meditations and some audios and some ideas for how to make this a very ceremonial vibe for us, and it was beautiful. So we took the mushrooms, and then we were in the big living room of this cabin, which was, it's beautiful. It has like these pine ceilings, any naughty pine ceilings. Anyone who's ever done mushrooms before knows exactly what I'm going to say about the naughty pine ceilings. But this living room also had multiple doors, entrances, and exits, and it was just a bigger room. Keep it that in mind because that's important. As we started to journey, the second that my body realized, even though my conscious brain knows I'm safe, knows I can handle this, my body and my nervous system started reacting to the second I realized I was starting to feel a difference in my body. So for me, the same exact thing happened the very first time I took a marijuana edible, and everyone thought that I was just like having a panic attack. I mean, essentially, my body was having a panic attack because she felt out of control. The same thing happened here. I wasn't hyperventilating or anything, but I was getting dizzy and I was getting really nauseous. And so the stupid naughty pine ceilings looked like eyes looking at us from everywhere. It was so funny and so creepy at the same time. And so although my logical thinking brain was like laughing and like thinking things were funny, my body was very scared. So I listened. In that moment, what my body told me was she needed a safer environment. My environment and my design is caves. Caves is all about safety and security. So I knew I needed to go to the bedroom where there was only one exit. There was only one door and there was one window. So I went to the bedroom, and within, time is weird when you're journeying, but I would say within probably minutes, maybe 20 minutes or so, my body felt totally normal, and I was able to enjoy and embrace the experience. So once I put my body in the safe place, everything changed for me. Now, at that point, we started just having light fun. I very much had an intention. I set an intention before and while we were drinking the mushroom tea, and I wrote it in my journal, and I knew what I would keep coming back to throughout the journey, because you can get just have like a really playful, light, everything's funny and hysterical kind of journey. And you can also have a very intentional one. And I wanted a mix of both. So we were sitting in bed playing with my oracle cards, and we started with my Moonology Magic deck. That is, wait, what is it called? Sorry, Moonology Manifestation deck. And it's a very beautiful deck. And so there's lots of colors and vibrancy. So when we were looking at them, we were just like, it was like watching a whole movie. Like the whole card was moving. Some of them were a little scary, And we definitely had like weird demons that would try to come in our visuals and in our third eye, all of that. But we both knew exactly what to do in that moment. We knew to hold the intention, to tell whatever darkness that felt like that it was not welcome. And I was able to pull myself back every time. And then at some point, it only happened a few times. And after that, it was like it gave up. It was like, all right, we're not dealing with that kind of darkness today. So I was really happy to see how easy it was for me to just literally take control of my brain in that moment. That's why it's so important to have tools and resources where you know you are equipped to do this kind of thing. And I just pushed it aside and focused on the intention. And so we started pulling cards just for fun from this Moonology deck and looking at them and exploring them. But then also, I started realizing that the cards I was pulling showed the visions that I was having when we were back in the living room when we first started journeying. It was wild. Like when I was first starting this journey in the living room, I met God, which was a really weird experience for me because I don't always use the word God because I just believe there's something that's bigger up there, right? But this literally was God and looked like a man and felt like a protective father figure. Odin, like I've been told in the past that I have this figure that's like Odin or like God, like very protective and wrathful, but loving. And so to me, what I was seeing, I labeled it as God. I don't know, but it felt very safe and protective and was literally pulling me up in like this white light. And I had angel wings on me, and it was just all this wild stuff. And it was so cool. It felt like I was floating, which I'm pretty sure floating is going to be the the word of the year for me for 2025 because that's come up a lot. I just want to like float through 2025. Oh, that's a good word. I'm going to keep that. That's my word. And so the cards that we were pulling was literally showing this woman in a white dress, exactly what I looked like. She was like being lifted up. It was wild. I was like, holy shit, I literally just saw this happen to all of me when we were in the living room. It blew my mind. So I started having clearly some type of psychic premonition, or maybe it was validation that, yes, you did see that. Yes, you did meet God. Maybe that's what it was. Either way, it was really cool. And then we started playing with my spell deck. And this one's going to be interesting because this is news to you guys. So we weren't intentionally pulling cards now with the spell deck. I literally was just shuffling them. I put them down. I split the deck just for fun and picked up a card, and it was the Priestess card. If if you've not heard already on Instagram or anything like this, I've been getting messages from the universe that in prior lives, I have always been a priestess of some sort, even if that wasn't the word that was used. I've been in direct connection with the divine feminine and her teachings. And that's been a common theme this past year. And I was like, I don't know what to do with that. That feels really big. I don't think I want to train as a priestess. And then here we are, New Year's Eve, and the first card from that deck is a priestess card. And I look at it and I'm like, God damn it. I'm like, Tim, this is clearly showing me something, right? He's like, yep, I'm pretty sure you're supposed to be on that path. And then I look to my right and I pull the next card, and it's an owl card. And an owl is very significant to my husband. So I showed it to him. I said, this one's for you. And he looked at me, and it's just like my friend Rachel had told me before we even had this journey. She said, Tim is going to be looking at you in a very different light after this. And I was like, I wonder what that means. And in this moment, I hand Tim the owl card, and he looks at me and he goes, you're a sorceress. I was like, what? He was like, you just like do this stuff, like pull cards and it has the answers that you need like all the time. And I was like, yeah. And he was like, how do you do this? You're a sorceress. It's like he's known that I'm very intuitive and that I'm psychic and that I channel, but he's never truly really seen it happen toward him. And in this moment, when I saw this card upside down, I said, this is for you. And it was an owl. He was just like, what? And so from then on, I realized what Rachel was saying. He was going to finally see exactly how I am a sorceress. I'm keeping that word, how I am a bit of a sorceress, how how my magic works, and it's so effortless. It's when I overthink it, when my ego gets in the way, that I can't find the messages, right? But because we were literally just sitting there and the ego was stripped away because of the psilocybin, there was literally no ego at all. It was wild. It was a very natural card pull or whatever, knowing. I don't know. It was really cool. So it was cool to see what Rachel said actually come back around. She's very good too, by the way. Go listen to her witchcraft episode and book a reading with her because she's fantastic. All right, so other themes of the night. I was having a huge power struggle around my body. Obviously, so trigger warning for the next like maybe 2 minutes. Fast forward if you need to. Obviously, because of my history of sexual abuse, there's a lot of body stuff. So, although my mind and my soul and my spirit feel very much healed with this abuse, my body has not completely caught up yet. And so, it was very prevalent this night on psilocybin because I was very much feeling like I wanted to step into my power with my body. I wanted to take control of my body. I wanted to make the decisions in anything that I allow or don't allow my body to do. And then if Tim would even like put his hand on my back or put his hand on my leg, I instantly got scared. It was like I was reliving my childhood all over again, where I was not in control. I dissociated. I went blank. I didn't know what to do. I froze. And then I was able to work my way out of that, but then I went straight to anger. So I got really angry with Tim and I was like, stop touching me. And it was a very, very interesting power dynamic that I had to navigate. So this is another reason why I want you to be very prepared if you're thinking about doing something like psilocybin. Probably do it with a facilitator, someone who's very knowledgeable in your history and has experience with whatever your history is. Um, but I was very much aware of what was happening and I knew what tools to use. So thankfully I was able to work my way out of that, but it was really wild to see that my body would still dissociate from my mind and I had to talk myself back into taking my power back and asserting my own dominance over my body. It was wild. It was also exhausting. This whole trip was very exhausting. But then when I was able to come out of that, move through that, just laying there looking at my husband, I felt the most love I've ever felt in my entire life. It was not just love toward him, but it was his gaze upon me and feeling for the first time I'm going to cry. Feeling for the first time in my life that I was truly receiving love, which I don't know that I have ever done because my core wound is gate 2, the most receptive gate. That's literally my wound. So receiving has been a common theme of something I'm trying to learn and navigate through. And in that moment, the way he looked at me, I felt fully receiving of his love. And it was something I can't wait to experience again. Let me tell you, I cried tears of love. It was so powerful. So now I really understand why they say mushrooms is like a love drug. Not love in like a sexual way, but just like love. It was like everyone's beautiful and I love you and everyone's happy. And it was beautiful. It was a really beautiful moment. So my deep love of him and allowing myself that love was really cool. And then I started crying from that love. And then the crying turned into seeing myself in Mayan times. So I was clearly Mayan. That's another thing that's been a theme that the universe has, or my ancestors, someone has been trying to let me know that I am Mayan and I have been Mayan. Makes sense also with the cacao and the relationship I have with cacao. So I kept seeing Mayan ancestors. I kept seeing these very tribal looking like figures. It was really wild. And then I think everything was wild. I'm just going to say everything was really wild. And then I started crying harder, like sobbing, and it was like crying for my ancestors. I could hear my female ancestors screaming and crying. And while that sounds awful, I'm talking about like I released for them and it was beautiful. I sobbed. And my husband, I just remember my husband saying, like, you really needed this. You really needed this, like to really sob and let it all out. And I just heard and saw in my third, like you see so much. They, like all my ancestors, my female ancestors, wounds healing through my crying. It was so crazy. And then and then it was done. And then I felt complete and then I felt like I had healed that for them. It was a really interesting experience. And then, oh, the armadillo. A couple of weeks before this happened, I had a really vivid dream about an armadillo and a wolf pup. And of course, I was talking to my friend Rachel about the armadillo and what all of that meant or whatever. And I think it was Rachel that said she thinks the armadillo was me, or maybe it was my friend Katie. This really like protected back, but like soft underside. I was like, yeah, I resonate with that. And at some point later on in the journey, I was cold. So Tim gave me his sweatshirt, and it was this really light beige color with the patterning that looked like an armadillo. And he looks at me and he goes, "Oh, you're an armadillo." I was like, "Oh, stop it." I'm gonna have to like post a picture of this sweatshirt, you guys. Like, you can't make this stuff up. So I don't know what the correlation was there. I don't know why it was in a dream I had weeks before. I don't know what the significance was. Of course, I've read my spirit animal book. I've connected the dots on a lot of things with safety, especially with the wolf pup and all of that. However, I don't really know why it was such a big theme that it had to come through in my mushroom journey and a dream, but it was really funny. It was really funny. He's like, "Oh my God, you're an armadillo." So I just had to add that there. And then the final story that I want to share on this is probably the most impactful one, the most powerful, but I am going to give you another trigger warning. Honestly, you can just stop listening here if you don't feel like you are in a safe space to listen about the things that happened to me when I was a child or anything that has to do with that. So, taking a moment here. At some point throughout this journey, I saw my abuser. And normally, when I see his characteristics, I get physically sick. I get really like this feeling of disgust, and my whole body reacts. It's awful. I can sometimes start crying. But this, I saw him and I did not react. I did not feel anything. And I knew it was his soul. It wasn't him that I was seeing, it was his actual soul. It was just this weird knowing. And he was sobbing. He was grieving what he did to me. And I saw myself. It was like I was right there, accepting him and giving him compassion. I was like rubbing his head or his back or something like that. It was one of the most powerful moments of my entire life. I could see for the first time that his soul, of course, this opens up a whole can of worms on like soul contracts and why things happen, whatever, but this is something I'm just going to take at face value because it's helped me. I saw his soul and how apologetic it was, how sorry it was. And ever since that, I have no reaction, no physical reaction to his physical characteristics, to the thought of him. My body still has not completely caught up. Like certain touch, certain physical touch, I still very much need to work through that. But the when I actually, if I were to see him in real life, I at this point don't think I would have a reaction. And I spoke with my therapist about this last week, and she brought me through a process where we envisioned him and all this stuff, and I had zero reaction. This is why I think certain plant medicines can be so incredibly powerful with the right knowledge, the right experience, the right safety. Because although that was only a tiny portion of my entire evening, it's now changed my life for the rest of my life. And I can't quite explain how, but my body knows. And that's all. My soul knows, and that's all that she needs to know. Like there's nothing else I need to dig from around there. So that was my psilocybin journey in a nutshell. Would I do it again? That's what everyone keeps asking. Absolutely. Yes, I will do it again. And next time I might even do it with my friends outside. I would love to experience it in nature. I did not do it outside this time because I did not yet have any experience with understanding how my body would react or what it would feel like. So, for my own safety, I stayed locked in the cabin with my husband. But now that I know, I'm definitely going to be experiencing it again, probably in the warmer months with some of my friends who are very experienced with psilocybin and see what comes up then. So that was my psilocybin journey. It was beautiful. It was exhausting. It was so exhausting. And it was epic. And it felt like the right next step for me to unlock a whole bunch of new shit. So I'm a sorceress, I'm a priestess. And I think for the first time in my life, I have truly deeply forgiven my abuser. Yeah. All right. So, with that, I will leave you and I would love to hear about your own psilocybin experiences, or if you need connections to exploring psilocybin on your own, let me know. Shoot me a message or an email, and I'll share whatever resources I've got for you. Thank you for listening. Bye.